Okay, so welcome again to today's very exciting IT Autopilot webinar. Meet your always on IT technician. You guys will understand a little bit later why we call it exactly that. Again, the agenda for today, before we'll get into business, we'll share a little intro. We'll talk a little bit about the differences between our IT Autopilot solution versus our AI Copilot solution, which you guys have probably already heard of. We'll also go over the key capabilities of our IT Autopilot, and we'll really dig deep into what makes it truly unique. And at the end, we'll have some time for some Q&A. And again, we have Yoav with us, which is a great honor. Our general manager of Atera in North America, as I mentioned. And I'm Lior. You guys have probably already seen me on our onboarding webinars. But if not, very nice to meet you all. And just to share our housekeeping rules, a recording of today's webinar will be shared through email. By the latest tomorrow, you guys should all receive an email with a link to today's webinar. We also have a Q&A tab right beside the chat. You guys should all see it. Let me know in the chat if you guys can see it. You guys can go ahead and enter in any questions that you may have. I'll try to answer as many as I can throughout today's session. And again, towards the end, we'll do a little Q&A. And we will also launch a survey for you guys to fill in to hear your feedback. Other than that, we also have a little surprise at the end and a chance for you guys to win a gift card to Amazon. So make sure to stick around till the end to really see what that requires. And now that you guys are here, I'm going to go ahead and just ask you guys a really quick question before Yoav takes it away. So if you guys can let me know in the chat, what takes up most of your time today? Any IT actions that you guys receive from tickets? It could be resetting passwords, or getting access to a platform, downloading software, anything that it might be. Since you guys are the IT experts, please let us know in the chat really what takes up most of your time today. So go ahead.
Let me ask that in a less polite way, maybe, Dil. What are you guys wasting your time on today? What are the issues that you guys are spending time on today that you wish you didn't need to? Let's see some answers here in the chat.
Okay, I see printer setup, passwords,
yeah.
Account lockouts. What else, guys? Don't be shy.
Kenneth, I feel the pain. I feel the pain. Permissions, distribution list changes. Yeah, definitely. These are all kind of exactly, I think, the topics that we're going to be talking about today. Look how many times password resets is coming up again and again. I can see Kenneth is a fan. I think that's a printer which is being abused there. We are not going to hurt any printers today throughout this presentation. But let me kind of reshare my screen. Let's talk a little bit about Autopilot, what it is, what it isn't. We're going to also go through a live demo of the product itself. And of course, we want to answer any questions we go through it. So as I share my screen, I actually won't be able to see any questions. So Lior is going to cover any questions you guys might have while we go through the presentation. Let me share my screen again and we can jump right in.
Perfect. Thank you, Av.
All right. So very, very briefly, let's start off by talking about why and what is autonomous IT. I think that over the past few months and years, we've all heard a lot about AI. We've heard about autonomous AI, but I think it's really important for us to start off by bringing some order to the chaos, right? And I think that the first question that we need to answer is actually not what is autonomous IT, but why do we even need it? And I think that when we look at some of the examples that you guys just gave of what is taking up your time, we know that right now, there are many, many challenges in the world of IT. We picked out 3 big challenges that we've seen across the industry. The first one is that it's very, very challenging to hire and to retain top talent. Kind of in surveys which have been done across the industry over the past few months, over 76% of companies mentioned that they are struggling to hire and to maintain IT talent. Secondly, we see with the proliferation of technology, we are only seeing tickets grow and not reduce, right? We're seeing an average growth of about 19% ticket volume year on year. And this is costing companies a lot of money, right? What we're seeing today, depending on the size of your business and how many employees and how many endpoints and how many servers, how many devices you guys are managing, we are seeing companies losing anywhere from $3 million to over $50 million a year in downtime costs, right? And downtime costs obviously can be defined in lots of different ways, but there's a massive problem here. We know that IT issues are costing the economy a massive amount of money. We also know that IT technicians, just like the that GIF that was just shared, are spending their time today doing a lot of soul-crushing, menial, repetitive, boring tasks. So the answer to why autonomous IT is because there is a lot of waste going on today in the world of IT. End users are not getting solutions to their problems as quickly as they would want, right? The amount of times that we hear from end users that they had to wait for 5 or 6 or 10 hours or 18 hours, depending if it was a weekend or a weekday or after hours. But the amount of time that people are waiting to sometimes just have somebody go into Entra and reset the password, or install a piece of software for them, or run a simple diagnostic, right? End users are suffering and waiting today for no apparent reason. IT technicians, I don't think I've ever met anybody working in IT that told me that they got into IT in order to reset people's passwords or deal with account lockouts or install a piece of software or install a printer or map a network drive or give people access to distribution lists, right? There's a really big imbalance between the capabilities of IT professionals and what they're being asked to do today. Because very often the kind of challenges that they're dealing with are urgent, but not particularly important, right? And that's causing a massive kind of misbalance there. So that's why we need autonomous IT. But what actually is it? And the way that we think about autonomous IT and Atera is really two big products that we kind of bring to market. And it's confusing, so I want to kind of try and make it as clear as I possibly can. On the left-hand side, you guys can see AI Copilot. And basically, think about AI Copilot as like a suit of armor, right? Like Jarvis for Iron Man. It's basically built to give IT technicians superpowers, right? To give them tools that allow them to do their job better, faster, and more efficiently. That's really the goal of AI Copilot. It's a tool which is built for the techs, and we're going to give you some examples of what are the kind of actions it can take. But that's AI Copilot. That's for the IT technicians. IT Autopilot, that is a product which is built for end users. And the best way that I can kind of explain what IT Autopilot is, it's like a virtual tier 1 technician, right? It's like an extension of your team, which is context aware, which is company smart, and we'll talk about what that means in a second. But basically, I'll get right to the chase. It's able to reduce your IT workload by about 40% by taking away the soul-crushing, menial, repetitive, boring work, whether that's solving tickets, right? Solving about 20% of tickets from beginning to end, or assisting in other tickets. And I'm going to show you examples of that in a second. But as we think about autonomous IT here at Atera, there's really two parts to it. There's the AI Copilot, which is the tool for technicians. Better, faster, stronger, right? And then there's the IT Autopilot, which is a tool for end users, where the benefit first and foremost is for the end users, which are getting a 0-time SLA, an immediate response in 20% of cases, an immediate solution to their problems, and in 80% of cases, being able to really cut down that average time to response, that average time to resolution, and really make sure that it's only involving a human technician when there's real value there, when there's a really complicated issue, or there's something that requires judgment, right? Not these repetitive, boring, menial tasks, as I mentioned before. So that's kind of, I would say, just to frame it, those are the two types of autonomous IT that we think about. And just to make it a little bit clearer, right? On the left-hand side, AI Copilot, what we're seeing is it's reducing the average amount of work by 13 hours. And how's it doing that? It's doing a few different things, right? It's anywhere from using it in order to generate command lines, right? So you can use it natural language to say, hey, show me open ports, and it's immediately going to translate that into a PowerShell script, run it, and show you the answers. Or it can take a ticket and create a knowledge base article automatically out of there. Or it can look at a remote session where you've remoted into an end user's device, summarize what happened there. It can generate a script for you, right? Whether that is a PowerShell script or any other type of script. You can use it in order to generate OIDs. There's a bunch of different kind of actions that it's able to take, hundreds of different actions which are built into the Atera platform, and you can use them inside Atera as part of the Copilot package in order to make your technicians just have more capabilities, right? Be able to do things in a much better way. And that leads, to much better resolutions. But on the right-hand side is IT Autopilot, right? And IT Autopilot is just what we talked about before, able to run over 200 actions today completely autonomously, right? And this can be anywhere from all the things that you guys mentioned before. It can reset your passwords. It can reset the password inside Entra and Azure. It can reset the password in another cloud system as long as we have the ability to get there. It can install software for you, right, from a pre-authorized whitelisted list of software that you guys want to give it access to. It can run diagnostics. It can track user activity, reset printers, install network drives. It can provide access to distribution lists if you give it permissions. But there's a bunch of different actions that IT Autopilot can take, where the ultimate goal is that ability to solve as many tickets as possible and to shorten the time to resolution on the tickets where it cannot provide a solution. I'm going to show you an example of all of these things in a second. Now, we've built our AI, we've built our agentic AI on top of OpenAI, right? So we've been partnered very, very closely over the past 3.5 years at this point with OpenAI, using their model as the engine right underneath these products we've built, Copilot and Autopilot. One thing to call out, which is incredibly important, none of your data is shared neither with Microsoft nor with OpenAI. It stays within your environment. It is not used to train our models. It is not used to inform our models for other customers. It is completely siloed in your own environment. But the underlying engine that we're using here is OpenAI. That's giving us kind of the firepower, which allows us to connect these tools and allows us to take all these actions and create value for our end users. So when we think about Autopilot, really there's three big kind of pieces of value, I would say. The first one is it's personalized. And when we talk about personalized, Autopilot, you should think about it as an extension of your team, because it doesn't behave generically, right? This isn't, like going into ChatGPT and asking it, if my internet's running slowly, what would you suggest I do? Or it's going to give you a very generic answer. But it really becomes an extension of your team. And it becomes an extension of your team in three main ways, right? The first one is knowledge management, where basically what it's able to do is it's constantly looking at the way that you're interacting with your end users and all of the actions that you're taking as an IT team, and it's building a knowledge base for you, right? And we know that most organizations either don't have a knowledge base or have a knowledge base which is not robust enough, right? Which they wish was more robust. And the reason that they don't do it, it's difficult to maintain, right? It's difficult to write these articles. People don't want to do it, and people don't want to maintain it. And that's kind of an area that Autopilot is really, really good, because it's able to constantly generate and keep a knowledge base which is up to date. That's the first thing. The second thing is you can give Autopilot capabilities. You can create scripts and make them available for Autopilot. I'll give you one example, which I'll show in a moment. But for example, one of our customers, they saw that they were constantly being asked by their end users to change the default application PDFs open in from Chrome to Adobe Acrobat, right? What they went and did, Autopilot actually suggested to them, hey, I see that you guys are doing this again and again. Here's a script. Would you like to make this script available for Autopilot so that the next time that an end user comes into Autopilot and says, hey, I want to change my default application PDFs from Chrome to Adobe Acrobat, it can see that it has a script which is available and it can run it for them and change kind of that default application. Thirdly, custom instructions. This is another way that you can really personalize Autopilot for you. And think about custom instructions as teaching Autopilot, right? Whether it's specific definitions that you guys have, right? Every business has its own acronyms, or, for example, one of the examples we like to talk about at Atera, our conference rooms have a very interesting naming schema. One of our floors only has the name of rappers, right? So if somebody's asking, how do I get to 50 Cent? If you don't give Autopilot any context, it's going to be very, very difficult for it to understand what you're talking about. Custom instructions is where you can teach it. You can teach it the lingo of your organization. You can teach it what you do. You can teach it the different types of software that you're using. And then that becomes part of that organizational knowledge. So That's kind of what's making it personalized, right? It becomes an IT technician, a virtual IT technician for your team, which does things in the way that you want it to. So you're really giving it the guardrails, you're giving it the instructions, and you're letting it serve your end users in the same way that you would. The second part is what I like to call everything, everywhere, all at once. For anyone that's seen the movie, fantastic movie. I think the value here is that Autopilot is available anywhere. That means that if your users are used to interacting with you over email, Autopilot can respond to them and work with them over email. If you want to use iMessage, it can be done there. Slack, Teams, Service, them there. And we're going to give them instant answers. As we mentioned before, zero time SLA. And when we say zero time SLA, that also means 24/7. And one of the things that we hear from our customers again and again is that if they don't have a follow the sun model, they very often might have a situation where from Friday at 5 or 6 p.m. until Monday morning, nobody's on help desk. And as luck would have it, on a Saturday night, maybe the CEO at that particular moment needed to reset their password and no one was available. Autopilot is always on, it's always available, it doesn't take vacations, it's never in a bad mood, nearly never in a bad mood. I'm joking, it's a Skynet joke. But basically, the idea here is that it's always available for the team anywhere that they need it. Lastly, it's not a chatbot. And I think that in this world where we hear about autonomous AI and we hear about AI agents, the thing to remember about Autopilot is that it's operational. It's not just conversational. What that means is it's not just conversing with the end users. It's not just feeding off a playbook of questions and answers. But what it's able to do is it's able to take actions. Because the end users have Atera's agent installed on their devices, we are able to take actions. And those actions can be installing a piece of software from a whitelist. It can be taking a bunch of different cloud actions, right? Everywhere from helping you connect your Bluetooth headphones or reinstalling a driver or resetting a password or whatever it might be, right? We can take actions on the devices, not just converse with the end users, resolve, not just respond. And lastly, it's proactive, right? It's constantly looking for areas that it can take actions. We talked about custom scripts before or creating knowledge base articles, but there's a bunch of different areas, and I'm about to show you guys this in action. So I just want to pause here for a quick second before we jump into the demo. Are there any questions before I show you this in action?
So I see Kenneth actually asked a great question. So we wrote it in the chat, but please next time, please write them in the Q&A so we can keep track. But as you can see, Kenneth asked if Autopilot can be separated by site, so that certain sites are able to install a piece of software that is only specific for them. So maybe you can answer that.
The answer is yes. I'm guessing from your question that you might be an MSP, because what we typically see with MSP partners of ours is that they might want to have, specific actions available for one site, not for another site. And I'll show you guys that in a second. But yeah, it's always, you're able to create different environments for different customers or different sites if you are an internal IT department.
Thank you.
Cool. Let me jump into a demo. Leo, can you just give me the quick thumbs up? Or not thumbs up because I can't see, but can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. Thank you.
Great. So I'm going to show you guys Autopilot in action. Now, I'm going to show you this through the service portal. But as I mentioned to you before, Autopilot is available anywhere. This is just the easiest way for me to show you. But you can converse with Autopilot through email, through text message, through Slack, through Teams. Happy to even show you kind of in my environment. I think my favorite example was that I myself was locked out of my Microsoft account on a Sunday evening, went into Autopilot, asked it to help me with the problem, and it took me exactly 5 seconds to get a new temporary password, log in, and change my permanent password. That's my personal example. But let me show you an example. I'm going to be an end user called Maxwell. You can see here. You can see here that we've named Atera's Autopilot Steve here. Each company names it something else. We've seen some very creative names. I think the funniest one of one of our customers, which has 3 different mics working on the IT team, they just decided to call Autopilot Mike. Everybody's used to Mike from IT, so the IT Autopilot is also called Mike. But an end user comes in and says, I'm trying to watch a video on my device, and it says I don't have the right app. So this is a very typical way, I would say, that users typically interact with IT. They're not necessarily going to give us all the information that we need immediately. And what you can see happening here, first thing is we've created a ticket. So you can see up here that we're always creating a ticket in the background, which is assigned to the AI assistant. So we can track and we can see what's going on and for reporting and SLAs and all that kind of great stuff. But what we're also doing at the same time is we're really taking action, right? So you can see that we're leveraging the Atera agent on the devices, first and foremost, to check kind of what's going on. You can see that it's looking. You can open this up and it can show you the entire thought process that it's going through. And then it's coming back to you and saying, hey, I've checked. I've seen that in your whitelist of software, there's VLC. You don't have it installed. Would you want me to install this for you? And if I hit install VLC media player, with that, problem solved, right? That's kind of one example of Atera's autopilot going from end to end, solving the problem for the end user without having to even get them involved at all, right? That's one example. It can also be a knowledge question, right? I can ask, what's the Wi-Fi password? Now, what's interesting about autopilot is that sometimes in the beginning we hear from our customers, hey, I'm not sure that our end users are going to be interested in using AI. They're pretty traditional about these things. But then what we see is that after a few weeks, the average amount of tickets opened by end users grows exponentially because people tend to be a little bit less embarrassed to ask IT Autopilot questions like, how do I use the VLOOKUP formula on Excel, right? It's just a silly example, but this is a real kind of real thing that we've seen from our customers, that autopilot becomes an assistant, right? It becomes a true assistant to each and every one of your end users, which are going to use this in order to to be much, much more efficient at their work, right? So those are kind of two examples of how autopilot can be used in order to solve problems from end to end. But it can't always solve the problems. So I want to show you kind of another example, which is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, my computer is running slowly. I have never met an IT team which has not seen a ticket that looks like my computer is running slowly. Now, same thing happening. We're opening up a ticket, and I'm going to show you what this looks like on the back end in a second. We're opening up a ticket, and now what's happening is that Atera's autopilot, you can see this happening in real time. This is a live demonstration. It's going and running all of these diagnostics, right? It's checking CPU and disk space. It's checking what are the processes which are consuming CPU. It's running a bunch of different tests in the background, and it's going to come back to me with a suggestion, right? It might say to me, hey, let's try and clear temp files or clear the cache or whatever it might be, right? There's a bunch of different examples of actions that it might suggest that I take, and we'll see that in a second. But in many cases, it's also not going to solve it, right? So you can see here that it said, your computer's main drive is totally full, which is almost definitely why things are running slow. Let me look for a quick way to clear it up. Let's start by clearing out your recycle bin and deleting temporary files. These are quick and safe ways to free up space. Ready to go ahead with this cleanup? Now, I might say yes, but I might say no. I want to speak to a human. And what you're going to see now is that it's going to hopefully escalate this to a human IT technician, right? So you can see now, and I'm going to pop over to the other side in a second. This is an example where autopilot started the process, it ran some diagnostics, and now when the IT technician is going to pick it up, he's going to have a lot more information, right? So there's a bunch of different examples. These are just 3 examples. Let's pop over now to Atera, and hopefully this is the screen that you guys are all familiar with. Let me grab our ticket screen. So in our ticket screen now, what you can see is you can see all of the tickets we just did, right? App requiring a video, so you can see that it ran all of these different examples. It's going to install it. Everybody's happy. The VLOOKUP example. But let me show you now here, slow computer. So let's jump in here and see what happens. We have all of the history of me as Maxwell saying my computer's running slowly, the way that autopilot responded. And then I said, I want to speak to a human. Said, no problem. And then what it's giving our technician is a summary of everything that has happened. So when I come in here, as Aaron Graf, as the assigned technician, I can jump in and take the ticket from the 50-yard line, right? I don't need to start this from the beginning, right? So that's an example of when autopilot can't solve, it's going to assist, right? And that can be also with things that it really can't solve, like, hey, somebody can come and say, I need a new laptop, I need a new monitor. You can teach autopilot what kind of questions would you like it to ask, right? So that it's really helping users up until the point in which it needs to bring in a human to help take it to the finish line. One last thing I'm going to show you here is the AI Center. So I mentioned to you guys before, but what's happening here at Atera and inside Autopilot is we are constantly looking for ways to make Autopilot better, right? So you can see here, for example, different types of actionable insights, right? So I might say, hey, I've seen over the last week that you've dealt with 8 tickets which have to do with how to handle security alerts. Would you like me to create a knowledge base article for you? The minute that you say yes, it creates a knowledge base article. You review it, of course, before anything happens, and you can hit create. And now that's going to be a part of the organizational memory of your organization. Next time somebody asks a question, you're going to have the solution right there. Another example is here, right? Let me just filter this quickly. We can see different types of scripts that it's suggesting, right? So for example, we might say, we want to set the display resolution to a specific value, or we want to, configure the Citrix receiver settings. All of these things, it's automatically creating a script for you. You can see the script, you can edit it, you can make sure that it all makes sense, and you can decide whether you want to make this script available for Autopilot. Do you want to make it available for Copilot, just for Copilot? And once you do, that means that the next time that a user is interacting with Autopilot in the service portal or anywhere else, right? As we mentioned, text message, WhatsApp, Slack, Teams, whatever it might be, there's another capability which Autopilot now has to take action and to solve problems for your end users. So I'm going to pause there before I hand it back to Lior to wrap us up. But any questions that have come up?
Yeah,
I can see
so
quite a few.
I see you mentioned a lot of different ways that end users can open tickets, whether that's Slack, Teams. But we have a great question from Kenneth. If they use a third-party ticketing system, would the end user still be able to use Autopilot? Is that something we support? So maybe you can
Absolutely.
answer that question.
Absolutely. So today we work very, very well with a bunch of different ticketing systems, right? We have customers of ours which are using ServiceNow. Think about Autopilot as being the first line of defense. So your end users wouldn't even know that anything has changed. Well, I mean, they'll get the responses, but when they come to open a ticket, if they're used to using email, right, and they write an email to support@kenneth.com, what's going to happen is IT Autopilot is immediately going to open a ticket for them in ServiceNow, incident or whatever it is, however it's classified. It's going to populate the data inside ServiceNow in exactly the way that you would want, and it's going to try and resolve the ticket. If it does resolve the ticket, great. It's going to follow your orders, but it can close it inside ServiceNow, resolve it, whatever it might be, or in Zendesk, or in Jira, or in Freshdesk, or whatever you might want. So yes, Autopilot is completely agnostic to ticketing system. Of course, it's helpful to use it with a Atera's ticketing system, but it's completely compatible with any other ticketing PSA.
Amazing. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions that I can answer. So thank you, Yoav. You're welcome to stay, or of course, you can go ahead and stick around backstage, whatever you prefer. I'll see what other questions we have and see if I can answer them. And in case we answered all of them, I'll also just make sure to send over a survey. So make sure to stick around towards the end. Let's see if there are any questions. Feel free to also ask any if you haven't just yet. I'm just taking a look.
I see a question here about Autopilot logs. So short answer is yes. All of the actions that Autopilot takes is available inside Atera. It's exportable, so you're able to take kind of everything that you would want about every action Autopilot is taking.
Amazing. Okay, let's see if there's anything else I missed before we wrap up. So if I haven't gotten back if I haven't answered your questions live, I'll make sure to reach out to you after today's webinar. If there's anything else, I'll make sure to also share my screen again to wrap up. So give me 1 second. So I just want to share with you guys some of our upcoming webinars. Hopefully you guys can all see my screen. Correct, Yoav? You can see it? Perfect.
Yes.
So we're going to have many more autopilot webinars coming up. So you guys can sign up on our website. They'll be going over the different actions that autopilot can take, just like Yoav showed today. And we went over the Q&A, which brings me to the end of today's session. If you guys are interested, of course, and you love Atera, and you want to share it with other users across the world, feel free to also just scan this QR code really quickly, and you can share your experience on G2, and you can also win a gift card. It's just as a way to say thank you. Of course, it's only if you're interested in going ahead and leaving us a nice little review. So I'll let you guys, I'll give you guys a moment just to scan it if you're interested, and I'll make sure to now launch the survey. So we would love to hear your feedback. If you're interested in getting a demo of Autopilot and jumping on a meeting with our team, you guys will have the ability to fill that out in the survey, and we'll make sure to get in touch. So thank you guys again for joining today. And I went ahead and launched the survey, so feel free to fill it in.